Diversity, equity, inclusion is not a checklist item. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the channel. The DEI conversation leaders are avoiding. Wow, hot button issue, right? DEI has been under attack for the last couple of years now. We have seen organizations who were all about it when it came to DEI, and then they quietly defunded their programs. They quietly shut them down. They quietly fired a bunch of people, right? Organizations who were shouting from the mountaintops about how great it was, how trendy it was to tokenize marginalized people, right? Well, here we are. Here we are yet again with people of color, with marginalized people holding the bag, right? Left holding the bag once again when it comes to being treated fairly in the workplace, when it comes to being represented for the value they bring to organizations. Here we go again with ideas, intellectual property being exploited and in some cases downright stolen. But that's another conversation for another day, isn't it? DEI is not a checklist item. What do I mean? We live in an era where buzzwords and trends are all the rage. The decisions that some companies make are just PR stunts at the end of the day. Okay, just for good exposure, because no one wants to be on the wrong side of history. No one wants to be seen as an organization that is unsupportive of people of color or marginalized groups, right? So it's easy just to say, okay, we need something. We need something, whether it's just, MLK Day or whether it's just a nice little Facebook post for Juneteenth. We need something. So let's do a DEI checklist. Sure, we can hire somebody, just kind of run through it. It'll be a ceremonious type thing. And then people want to wonder why none of this worked, why none of this had teeth. And I'm not going to go in on that too much because if that's something you're interested in, through my company, The Flavor Room, we have an ebook coming out that will get into this further. You can check out our content on LinkedIn, as well as some podcasts that we've been on recently. Shout out to DEI After 5, as well as Rethinking Leadership and America in Black and White. You can check out our features on those channels. And again, our content on social media. I will leave the links in the description box if you want to hear more about going down, that DEI trail specifically when it comes to that. We've done research, we have all that on our website. Interesting stuff. But I want to hone in on DEI not being a checklist item because, as I said, it's easy to do. And it's easy to lose sight as a leader, as a founder, whether or not diversity really matters to you beyond just the words, beyond just the niceties. Let's talk about the checklist trap. Hiring diverse talent, hosting workshops, updating the website. You got your policy, your revamped DEI statement, all the good stuff. And these are activities, okay? And I'm going to juxtapose this to something that I tell clients all the time when it comes to their businesses. Sometimes it feels good to do things because you think, oh, I'm doing stuff, I'm being productive. But at the end of the day, are the things that you're doing creating the outcomes? And this is what we're talking about when it comes to the hiring diverse talent, hosting workshops, all the cute stuff. Is it leading to outcomes? That's a question to ask about your organization's DEI initiatives. Initiative. That's a key word, isn't it? Taking the initiative. But what is the result of said initiatives? These things, they create the appearance of progress without really shifting the power, which is, at the end of the day, the real grievance for people of color and other marginalized groups, is that shifting of power. Not just opening the door and letting people in, but do they have a say? Do they have a real say? And do they have true representation, not just being a speck on your marketing materials? Let's talk about the retention reality. Now, you can recruit diverse talent all day long, okay? But if your culture, if your organizational culture doesn't change, they're not going to stay. And we're seeing that as well. Either they're not going to stay because they're going to leave, or as we've also seen, they're not going to stay because they're going to be fired. So the problem isn't the pipeline, it's the environment they are entering into. And quite frankly, there's a lot of people who have had enough. And so the onus is on you as a leader of that organization, okay, or as the founder, if it is your organization, to fix that. I talk a lot on this channel about power, positional power, and I want to touch on power versus presence. So who's making the decisions? Right? This is what people of color and marginalized groups want to know. Do they have real power? Not like, haha, we're going to come in and take over. But no, are they being properly represented? Do they get to make decisions? Do they have a say? Who gets promoted and why? Who's getting promoted and why? Who gets heard in meetings? If you don't have the answers to those questions, or the questions that I just asked make you uncomfortable, it's time to check in on that. Because this all encompasses the culture of your organization. Now, the hard work is that DEI, okay, some people may not like to hear this. I don't care. That DEI is not an HR function. It's a leadership responsibility. If you care, if you really care about diversity, not as a buzzword, but what it actually means to have diverse representation, real representation, access, opportunity, okay, and power within your organization. Because that's going to require examining your own biases, your own networks, and your own comfort zones. You can't hire your way out of a culture problem, because at the end of the day, that's what all this comes back to. And I could go down all these kinds of rabbit holes in this video could be like 30 minutes long at the very least, talking about examples in real time of organizations that have publicly been revealed to have cultural problems, and some of them have been very recent. But we're not going to get into that, because you probably know the ones that I'm talking about. You don't want to be those organizations, full stop. So again, check out the work that I'm doing with the Flavor Room. We get more into this topic, but I just wanted to give you something to think about with this today. The culture that you're creating for your organization, for your company. If this conversation is one that you know your organization needs to have, let's talk. Link is in the description box to book a call with me, so you can explore how I can help you and your team create a culture that celebrates diversity, not just with optics and buzzwords, but real diversity and buy-in and power for the people who are looking to have it. All right. So until next time, peace.